a satellite spots a strange structure in the remote Afghan sands. A relic from some long-forgotten war?
Afghanistan is a graveyard of empires.
But one man on a quest for vengeance successfully conquered this area. His name strikes fear into the hearts of those who faced him. They called him Iskender the Demon. We call him Alexander the Great. In 2008, reconnaissance satellites survey the battle-scarred southern provinces of Afghanistan, looking for insurgent activity.
The area is incredibly violent.
It's full of insurgents. There's very little local control over the region.
In the heart of the barren Registan desert, a strange object lurks amongst the dunes.
The image looks like a hollow square.
It looks like a number of geometric shapes carved out in the middle of the desert.
What is it, and why is it here? The history of this region suggests that the purpose of this structure could be military.
This part of the world has been fought over for thousands of years. Afghanistan is seen as the graveyard of empires. Different military powers have gone back and forth across this country only to meet their demise.
There are so many ruins of lost empires in the region that separating one from the other is almost impossible. But in recent decades, one power has dominated this land.
If you say Kandahar nowadays, the first thing that pops to mind is going to be the Taliban. So are they the ones who built this?
But experts aren't convinced this structure fits the Taliban way.
The Taliban are guerrillas, and so they would probably avoid making big structures like this.
They mostly keep to the caves and keep out of sight.
There's no tents, there's no vehicles, there's no security set up. There's nothing that suggests there's any type of military occupation.
The condition of the structure suggests that it is old, very old.
It's heavily wind eroded, and it's got a lot of blown up sand and debris. I would guess that this is an ancient fortress.
What could a fortress be guarding in this isolated, arid region? Perhaps this stronghold once stood watch over the most lucrative trade route in history, the Great Silk Road.
The Great Silk Road was a trade network, really, connecting everywhere from China all the way to the Roman Empire. It actually lasted thousands of years, really, in some form, but was a road that was facilitated by these large empires that grew during this time period.
It was the money funnel that anyone who was in political power would want to control.
Traders were obviously at risk from bandits, so if you had somewhere like a fort to go as a refuge at night, that was where you'd hang out.
But according to local experts, there's a serious flaw in this theory.
Most of the silk routes go to the north of Afghanistan, and the forts that we've found are to the south of the mountains in the center of Afghanistan, so I don't think that they're related to the silk routes.
The Great Silk Routes were not the only roads to riches running through Central Asia. Satellite archaeologists have discovered another fortified highway that dates back to the time of the Persian empires.
It had an imperial route running towards Kandahar, which is where these forts are located.
It seems likely that this fort was one of many built by the ancient Persian Empire.
We've found hundreds of sites, but it's only a small area that we've been looking.
The Persians built fortifications to defend themselves against their deadliest enemy, Alexander the Great, the most successful general in the ancient world.
Alexander the Great, his name is corrupted from Alexander into Iskender, sometimes demonized in the Arab world because for the Persians, for Iranian history, he brings down a Persian empire.
To the Afghans, Iskender was a demon who destroyed the Persian Empire and conquered their homeland in a relentless quest for vengeance. This massive invasion might have provided a compelling reason to build the fortress in the dunes. Afghanistan comes to Alexander's attention when the Persian king Darius flees into the region. There, he is murdered by his generals. Alexander is horrified by the generals' act of betrayal to their king and hunts them down. He ties their ringleader naked to a stake and cuts off his nose and ears in the traditional punishment of a traitor to the king. The struggle provides the perfect excuse for Alexander to conquer Kandahar.
He's really expanding his empire the way he did everywhere.
But in Afghanistan, he gets more than he bargains for.
In this instance, in Afghanistan, he ran into just incredible local resistance and was devoted to trying to create fortifications and military response to that local resistance.
When you take over or try to conquer a territory, it makes sense to put up some type of fort or military installation to secure a toehold.
But some historians are not convinced they see the shape of an Alexandrian fort in the Afghan sands.
Wherever Alexander conquered, he left colony sites, effectively, fortresses, but most of them were pre-existing cities which just had their name changed to Alexandria.
So there's often a romantic association between ancient ruins and Alexander or Iskender, but that doesn't necessarily mean that there is any basis in fact.
Yet the tantalizing possibility still remains that this Persian fort in the middle of the Afghan desert once stood witness to an epic struggle between its builders and the greatest general in the ancient world.